record to the computer. We are
Sure.
recording. Got the
Making
QR
sure I didn't
code
get
up.
any extra questions during.
Okay. I'm going to let all the folks in. So you have the floor, Zach.
Yes. I will go through all the extra questions at the end, but how long do you want me to keep the QR code up?
Maybe we keep it up for the first 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay, so I will
Um,
just honestly, I think I'll just wait for people to file in and while they're handling that QR code. I got a few extra questions on my drive, so I'm just gonna read them, not out loud, but just so I know what to say when the time comes for the Q&A.
awesome.
Um,
Sorry about that, Zach. I hit the wrong button.
oh no, it's all good. I was like, what happened?
Yeah, that was my bad. I was looking at the participants
Oh,
like
okay.
unmute button and I accidentally hit not allowed to share screen. So sorry about that.
It's all good.
We're at 3 o'clock,
Let me just
so
share
I
again.
think you are good to go whenever you're ready to share.
Cool, cool. Let me make sure I can see everything correctly so that I've lost the chat. Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Just gonna pop over to the first slide. So nice to meet you. I'm gonna edit this a little bit. Okay. I am Zachary Cretegny. I am a concept artist in the video game industry right now, and I wanted to give y'all a rundown on starting out as a concept artist. Tough times, so I really want to be as honest about everything that's going on, what to expect in this industry, and try to give y'all the best chance possible in um, succeeding as a concept artist, regardless of the industry that you wind up in. So, who am I? Um, I could have so much stuff open on my screen. So I am currently a freelance concept artist. In between like contracts right now, but I specialize in creature and character design. I am currently based in Paris, France, and during my time at SCAD, I was a sequential art major with a minor in concept art for games. So I took classes in both the sequential art and ITGM departments or majors, which I think was really beneficial to my development, taking those game development classes. I graduated in 2021, started in 2017, and I also do some work as a character illustrator for indie tabletop RPG games, which I love. I am a big like Dungeons and Dragons Pathfinder nerd, and that's definitely like my side thing. I'm just like always playing those games. So first I'm gonna go over my concept art journey. This is really like the quick rundown. At the end, I'm gonna send you all the presentation that has a more in-depth rundown for the work that I did through the years. That's a little bit more, um, I think, helpful. But this was what my work looked like when before I came to SCAD. So I was deep in like the DeviantArt rabbit hole. Drew a lot of wolves, and I did a lot of like line art work. Generally, like pretty much like more on the stylized side. And yeah, these little like character reference sheets, which were really popular back then, still are. But yeah, this is just a little example of my pre-SCAD work, and this is my final project at SCAD. So through my time at SCAD, I definitely focused in on figuring out and improving my anatomy skills, color, rendering, presentation, really focusing on all of that to try to make a really strong final project. So yeah, this was part of my senior project. Just one part of it because it's like a 10-page document. But And after graduating from SCAD, I had an internship and was able to work with ZeniMax Online. And after finishing that internship, I just didn't feel like I was necessarily ready to move into the video game industry afterwards. I felt like if I wasn't guaranteed a full-time job, it just was going to be a struggle. So I went back to school and I studied at New Edge Concept Art School in Paris. So I mainly specialized in character and creature design, and this was some parts of my final project there. So pretty recent work. And for this presentation, these are the general sections I'm going to go through. So I'm going to start with some industry basics. I know that some of you have had the recent so some of you from the Concept Art Club have had the general what is concept art talk. But I am going to go through a little bit of those basics just because it's very relevant to where you go in the industry, and there's different expectations based on what industry you're working for. I will also talk about the scary part, what to do while you're studying and what to do after graduation. So industry basics, crash course in industry expectations, understanding the job. We're designers, we're not illustrators. A lot of people will show work like splash art for League of Legends and stuff like that, and say that it's concept art, it's illustration. It's very like there's a little overlap, like some people do both, but there's very different expectations. And as a concept artist, you are going to be designing product. You're giving life to other people's ideas. You're getting prompts, you're getting like people saying, you're doing this and you do it. You just have to find creative solution to problems. You're essentially a product designer for the entertainment industry. So you're going to be doing a lot of ideation. You can see like the bottom right, that is about 3 weeks of ideation of just focusing on like trying to pump out as many ideas as possible to come up with the final designs that are the three celestial monsters that are above. Really trying to figure out, okay, like we have a base idea of what we want as a concept, like an Aztec inspired like creatures that have obsidian elements and are ghostly like rock creatures. So we knew those base ideas, and then kind of trying to figure out, okay, like are we doing monster heads? Are we doing statues and all of that stuff? And then figuring it out from there. And also a big part of this career is doing call out sheets, turnarounds. I don't have the turnarounds on here because it's a big document, but these call out sheets are showing the different materials and being able to explain those really well. Big block of text, but here are the type of jobs that you can kind of expect as a concept artist. You will either be working full time in a studio, so it's generally pretty consistent work. You'll be working on one project for a long time until the next project comes along. The material and software is usually covered by the studio. If you're working in LA or in a lot of like some parts of the States, you will get pretty decent pay. But generally, it's kind of middle of the road. It is very competitive. A lot of people want to work for like CD Projekt Red or Santa Monica Studios or like the big companies. So definitely expect to have more competition when you're working for a full-time studio or trying to find a job in a full-time studio. And also, especially for smaller studios, you have to expect to be a little bit more of a generalist and touch on different skill sets. So when I was doing my internship at ZeniMax Online, I was doing prop design, I was doing skins for characters, I was doing pets, I was doing creature design, I was doing buildings. It was really just doing everything. And when you're working in-house, there's a pretty high likelihood that you'll be touching on a lot of different subjects, unless the studio is big enough to have a dedicated character department. But yeah, as a freelancer, you'll most likely have pretty inconsistent work, unless you're one of the greats. You will often have shorter contracts because time equals money, especially if you're being paid by the hour. You have higher rates than a full-time employee. So they really want to make sure that those rates count. And you also have to pay for your own software. And for freelance positions, they tend to seek out specialists. So they'll find people who have a lot of experience in a specific subject. So they might say, like, a company is looking to do like a fantasy project. So they're going to go and try to find the best dragon designer that they can find on ArtStation. So they're going to reach out to the person who has really amazing dragon designs in their portfolio and hire them to do a very specific task in their team. And then the third is outsourcing. So a lot of studios are moving towards outsourcing. And work depends very much on what is needed, what needs to be sourced. The contract length is it depends. You'll oftentimes be working on different projects for different studios, which some people really like being able to have a little bit more diversity in their experience in a studio. And you can honestly either be a specialist or a generalist. Really depends on the outsourcer, really depends on what their expectations are. So just quick rundown on understanding our industry. It's not really uncommon to move around between industries, especially industries that have different similar styles. So say you're working on like a AAA shooter, you might work on like a military movie or a sci-fi movie, something that has a little bit of a similar visual vibe. If you're doing super high realistic work, there is a little bit of overlap there. Um, and same with stylized. So like working on like a super stylized animated movie and then working on a super stylized game. In video games, you can find jobs in AAA, AA, indie, mobile, in live action, look into films, television, music videos. People often forget about music videos, like get contacts in the music industry. And I saw some really cool concept art for like the Montero music video on our station. Fortunately, I don't have it in the presentation, but there's some really awesome stuff. And also advertising. Advertising is in kind of two sections. In animation, film, television, there's a little bit of a difference between like the 2D and 3D animation expectations, but that's really project by project. And for the rest, there's advertising, which also includes like short films for Magic the Gathering or League of Legends. A lot of these companies are animation studios, but they tend to have very different styles than your standard like full budget Pixar movie or like animated TV show for kids. Also, the tabletop industry, so tabletop and board games and themed entertainments, so theme parks and the like. Just a little example of I'm going to go through the industries and what kinds of jobs you'd be doing within each one, or rather what production cycles you can expect. In video games, there's the blue sky production cycle. So you're doing really early stage stuff that is, they're trying to come up with what is the idea of the game? What are we producing? What are we doing? And you're answering those questions very loose drawing generally at the very start. I'm just trying to come up with those early ideas to figure out what the project is. Then pre-production, which is what most of concept art is, and then marketing. It's not really concept art, but since many concept artists do it, I put it in here. A studio that does it pretty well is Envar Studios, which is an outsourcing studio in the Netherlands, I believe, or Sweden. And they work with Riot Games a lot. And they do splash art for Riot, but they also do concept and characters for Riot. Video games tend to have longer production cycles. And like I mentioned before, indie generally wear multiple hats, and there's sometimes overlap with game concept art and 2D game art positions. Here's a few examples of artists. In live action, there's the pre-production, post-production, and matte painting. Matte painting, again, not really concept, but there is that overlap. I have a lot of friends that are concept artists who also do matte painting work and honestly get more work in matte painting than in concept. So for pre-production, just what the idea is, what is going to be modeled. But there's also things that are kind of like mid to post-production. where they will have plates for film. So a pre-filmed segment, and you have to design around that segment. So figuring out, okay, so we have like a platform with the characters on it, and you have to design what that space is around it so that they can create it with the VFX team in post. That whole make it in post mentality that the VFX industry loves to have. Visual development. Unfortunately, I have less information about visual development since I'm not really in the animation industry. But you can see a lot of the stuff that you would generally see in other sectors, other industries, with the addition of color scripting, which isn't as common in other industries. So really amazing color scripters are Nathan Folks, incredible guy. He has a lot of experience in the industry. He's been working in it for a very long time, and he looks awesome. He has like a really cool eye patch, and he has really great things to say about the industry and a lot of insight. So if you can find a talk by him, I highly recommend it. And then advertising, so kind of similar to the film and animation, kind of that in between film and animation. You can find like car ads, which generally like keyframes, and Magic the Gathering has a lot of promotional material where there will be like full design work that is done, and a lot of outsourcing studios do work on that. And then I believe this is the last one that I had for the industries, themed entertainment, theme parks, rides, VR experiences kind of fall into themed entertainment sometimes. So Disney Imagineers do a lot of themed entertainment design that winds up being in the actual theme park. So that's always a really cool thing. Like if you wind up working on themed entertainment, saying like, hey, you can physically go to the space that I designed. Really awesome to work on these projects. And oh yes, other games. So TTRPGs. In Magic the Gathering, you actually see a lot of projects being done in concept art first. So they will figure out the shape language of different spaces and the way characters look, environments, and then give those to the illustrators who will then make the cards. They generally change the designs a little bit, but it's really interesting to see that workflow. And then here are the expectations for what kind of tasks you'll be doing. Prop design, you're most likely to find jobs in prop design. Every single game needs props. They it's potentially a little hard to break out of just doing props. I've spoken to a few people, not going to give the names just because, you never know. But people who have done props in the industry and then they kind of get stuck doing props because there isn't really an opportunity to do much else unless you prove that you can do much else. So that's just a thing to know if you're doing a only prop portfolio. But as environment and character designers, you need props in your portfolio. You really need to, like for a character, have weapons. Really focusing on the design for the weapons. If a character is like has a wheelchair, designing that wheelchair and really going into the design concepts and making sure that the design reads as a prop separately from the character as well. And also that will help the production team be able to understand how these shapes work because you are working for production. So everything you design needs to be able to be easily read so that the 3D art department, the game artists, the environment artists, character artists can work from your designs. Same goes for environment design. So this is just locations, maps, building, nature. Have a few examples here. It's kind of similar stuff to before. This is the second easiest job to get, I would say. Not really easy, but in the scale of things. And this would be really building like livable spaces that you would encounter in game, film, etc. Keyframes, basically environments, but hard mode. These are the masters of composition. It's not necessarily the hardest job to do, but it is extremely hard to get jobs doing only keyframes. Keyframes are a good way to showcase a design. So showing, okay, this is my design in action. This is my design in space. But you really want to focus on only using this to make your designs appealing. Um, it's only really used in the film industry. And that's just keyframes are cool, but I bring up keyframes specifically because when you go in ArtStation, a lot of the work that you'll see is keyframes. So it'll just be a really pretty image, but it doesn't really have design sense behind it. They're not really explaining how they came up with the individual designs in the piece. It's not really ready for production. It's really hard to, you wouldn't be able to pass it to a game artist and them understand what they're looking at. They don't understand the space. Like you really want to make sure that that's communicated in your design work. Having a couple keyframes is fine, but don't overdo it for your portfolio. This is not necessarily its own sector, but it is a specialization. So you will find hard surface everything. Like you'll find hard surface characters, hard surface buildings, hard surface environments, hard surface built like vehicles, but hard surface is one of those things that has more opportunities specifically. I see a lot of opportunities for just hard surface artists. Um, for most hard surface positions, you need to be a 3D, like really deep into Blender, knowing how to use this software pretty consistently. It's you need to understand how things work. It's really the engineering position in concept art. And honestly, a lot of the finals look very similar to how the finals in an actual game would look. Like you see this concept for Concord, it looks like a game asset. But it is concept art. Like this is just the concept artist for the game who worked on that. So, and then character design very competitive. A lot of people want to be the character designer because I mean it's kind of the star job, especially if it's the main character. It's the player character. Like it's cool to be able to say like I worked on that. But most character designers work on skins for say like Blizzard games or Riot games, or they do work on a lot of NPCs. It's good to have a portfolio that has a lot of characters that are side characters, background characters. If you're doing a character design portfolio, try to have those NPCs, try to have people of different body types, and really diversify what you're showing so that it's not just the standard like main character that you see time and time again in all of these games, all of these movies. And then creature design, which has overlap with character design. Some people do both. I do both. But that is mainly because it's very hard to just be a creature designer. There's fewer opportunities than character design, which already has very few opportunities. And they mainly reach out to freelancers that they have on call. There's like 10 like creature designers that are frequently used in the industry and they work on everything, especially in film. It's just like you will see the same name over and over and over and over again. David here, like if you go on his portfolio, it is so many feature films. And it's just like, oh, I know that, I know that, I know that. I've seen this. And it's very competitive for character designers. Sorry, creature designers. But it's one of those things that if you're a character designer, it's very good to have the skills in creature design as well. And then there's VFX design, not necessarily its own specialization. I have seen job postings that state that they're specifically looking for a VFX designer, but this is just a very common aspect of all of the other job categories. So it's generally like primarily used in fantasy or stylized games, but you also see VFX for say like a laser gun or like a lightsaber and things like that, where you're really trying to show how it would look in that final product, in that final game. So they tend to be like pretty polished, both polished and not. It's kind of hard to get that fully explained. It depends on the project, obviously, but um, it's really just seeing how things work in that. Oh, sorry, bright lights. But here are the tools of the trade. So tools that you will very frequently see as a concept artist. So for 3D sculpting, ZBrush, 3D Coat, Adobe Medium, Blender. Um, I Blender, you're going to see in a lot of these. Plasticity, if you're doing vehicle design, plasticity is a big one. Um, DAZ 3D, Magic Poser, and Mixamo, really good for 3D posing. 2D art, as long as you can get a PSD and you can consistently produce work, you're generally okay to use most like 2D art softwares, but Photoshop is the industry standard. Um, for other pieces of software, just so I don't spend too much time on each one, I recommend Sketchfab and Bridge. Granted, I believe they're going to be merged into just Fab in the future, but they have a lot of assets that can be used, especially if you're doing very realistic scenes. Don't rely on them. Make sure you design your own work as well. But for background elements, for plants and things that are you don't want to model every single thing in your scene. Really good resource for that. PureRef, great. It's a really good piece of software that you can use for referencing material, having it overlaid on your screen. And Unreal Engine is starting to really start getting used in the video game and in the concept art industry, especially in film, especially in AAA. Okay, I'm going to go over a little bit of the scary part, the part we don't really want to talk about. And I'm going to start with the industry standard. This was something that was hard for me to realize when I was at SCAD, but you can't compare yourself to your classmates. Instead, you have to look at people who have the job that you want. You can be the best person in your class, you can have the best grades in your class, but you can still not be at the industry standard. And I think it's really important to stay on top of that and understand what the expectations are in this industry. And these are the tools I generally use to do that. I will look up studios that I want to work for on LinkedIn or ArtStation, and then look through the portfolios of those that are working there. Just make sure, like, within reason, because if you're a not even junior looking at senior portfolios, yeah, you're not a senior yet. So definitely like take it with a grain of salt. But I recently watched a video by Timothée Martin, and he was saying that having just 30% of the skills of a senior can level you up beyond most other entry-level candidates. Look at how they produce work, what tools they use, how they present their work. Don't copy exactly what they're doing, but kind of just look through those elements to figure out how you can apply that to your portfolio, especially, and look at the studios. Cater your portfolio to specific studios. And if you're looking at and I say that as like you don't want just a Riot portfolio, but if you find games that have a similar-ish style, cater a portfolio to that general type of game so that you have the best chances for applications to all of them. Also, I have to bring up the current state of the industry. The industry is rough right now. It's very important to understand the state of the industry. There was a lot of hiring during COVID, and it contributed to significant layoffs that are having a knockdown effect even today. There's a lot of people also reaching out to outsourcing because it's cheaper and things are just more expensive. So it's a tough time to get a job right now. Even people with really strong portfolios are struggling for work. I saw this lovely little poll a couple of days ago on LinkedIn. Most people are unemployed and looking for work. Granted, that's the people who are on LinkedIn frequently and see this, so it's definitely like weighted a little bit towards people who are actively using LinkedIn. But it's really important that you understand the way the industry is right now, because just in the past like month, in terms of jobs, I've had people reach out to me like, "Hey, we love your portfolio, want to work for you, want you to work for us." And 2 weeks later, I reach back out to them, and they're like, "Sorry, the project got canceled. Project lost funding. We can no longer afford a concept artist on the team." But the thing is, I am still getting people reaching out to me. People are still looking for concept artists. They still want to work with concept artists. It's just that you have to do a lot of work to get there now, and you have to do a lot more work than people even 3 years ago, and you really have to stay on top of it. early. And another thing I was told, like it was mentioned that I should probably talk at least a little bit about generative AI. It has had an impact on the industry. I don't think that it is replacing jobs to the point like an excessive amount. And I've spoken to seniors, art directors, creative directors in the industry, and the general consensus is that the main reason that it's taking jobs is because investors are putting money into AI development instead of video games. Um, that's the main thing that I'm hearing, as opposed to taking away like the skill set. And people are actively fighting against AI. People are um, like the Concept Art Association, Carla Ortiz. There's regulation that's being passed. It's slow because regulation always is slow, but it's just stay updated, read the news, stay aware of how like this software is being used. And I think the best way to combat it is to learn. I have not learned AI, but learning tools that can push you above the competition. So really pushing that knowledge of Blender and 3D skills, really trying to learn like photo bashing, learn how to be fast, learn how to be fast and good, which is very difficult, but it's something like start getting those skills early so they can be competitive when the time comes. Okay, now the scariest part is out of the way. I'm going to talk about what you can do while you're at school. Figure out what you want to accomplish. Check out portfolio guides, figure out how much you need to feel prepared for an application. Figure out what makes you unique and what you want to specialize in. Figure out your personal style, and it can take a long time. I've been told recently, like, yeah, you need to focus on a personal style, especially if I want to do freelance work. It's a little harder if you don't have a distinct style. But I think that the best time to explore is while you're at school. You're not immediately searching for a job. You have 4 years if you're a freshman to really explore what you want to do, what subject you want to cover. If you want to be an environment artist, if you want to be a character artist, explore all of it and figure out what you really want to do because it may change. I've discovered I really like doing environment design. It's not really something that I would do full time, but it's really important to get that like knowledge and explore throughout the field and understand you're at school to learn. Um, if you're not ready by the end of school, don't lose hope. Building a portfolio is something that you are going to be doing constantly. It's a lifelong endeavor. I'm still working on my portfolio now, even after graduation. All my friends are continuing to do personal work on the side, to be relevant and stay up to date on software and knowledge in the industry. And I also added a bunch of links to that you can access for all of that I'm going to send after. Make the best of every single class. Use opportunities granted to you in class and make the best of them. You're surrounded by talented artists who can offer critique, assistance, and morale. Don't be afraid to fail. Not every single class that you do is going to be in your portfolio, especially your early classes. You really just want to learn. Um, and some professors are lenient and allow you to do more concept related work for unrelated classes. It's best to ask early to figure out if you can do that. Don't drop a class just because you can't, but I think that it's definitely worth it to ask and say like, hey, can I like make this a little more concept arty so that I can add it to my portfolio and have more opportunities? Like the work example here is I did a vehicle design class. I am by no means a vehicle designer, but this was a class that I really gained a lot of knowledge in and will use a lot of these skills for future projects. Also, practice outside of class. Um, During summers, I highly recommend trying to take additional classes. If you can afford it, if it's something that you're able to do, obviously, like it's not always possible. While I was at SCAD over summers, I would take additional concept art classes just to really like build those skills because there weren't really any classes that were geared towards concept art specifically at the early stage of SCAD that I was at. So those are the schools that I recommend. Also, online mentorships. Some artists will have like a 10-week mentorship or a 6-week mentorship that you can really focus and get that one-on-one feedback with professionals in the industry. Do studies. Studies are so important. Never stop doing studies. It's something that like I still do frequently. I love doing them. It's just something that can teach you so many beneficial skills that will be relevant to you throughout your career. Um, Go to club activities. Events like this, where you're learning from people that are in the industry, are really helpful. I mean, I highly recommend SCAC because I was also an officer when I was at SCAD, and there are contests. There's ways to collaborate with your classmates and develop strong foundational skills, speed skills, um, and the last thing that I recommend is learning the tools that are not covered in school. I don't believe Blender is covered in SCAD unless that has changed since the time it's been 3 years. Um, but I highly recommend if you're a concept artist learning Blender and getting all of that software that is cheap or free while you have access to it. Please, that's really beneficial and will help you in the long run, especially when you don't have to worry as much about jobs, if you don't have to worry about jobs, because obviously some people have to work during their studies. Use your resources well. Like I said before, use your software resources. Meet with your career advisors early. I started meeting with my career advisor my freshman year. I don't know if there's like a policy that's changed on that or anything like that, but I was talking with her pretty frequently, at least like 2 or 3 times a year, to understand what areas of my portfolio to work on, how to get in contact with studios, how to find studios, go to the job fair. I believe that now the job fair is going to be in person again. Thank goodness. So early on, because I was pre-COVID, when I was at SCAD, I went to the job fair my freshman and sophomore year as a an assistant. So I worked with architecture company, so it wasn't really relevant to my field, but I heard a lot of interviews going on, and I gained a lot of skills in understanding how to conduct an interview, what kind of expectations they might have, and I know a lot about architecture hiring now. So hey, yay for fun skills. Use your job portal. Uh, my junior year, through the job portal, I found like a job opportunity at Magic for Wizards of the Coast. I wound up getting to like the top 5 candidates at the time. So definitely like you have the opportunity to meet with big studios. Take those opportunities while you're at SCAD because that is the biggest thing that art school can provide you is connections. Um, and I believe, nope, not yet, but start applying early is another thing. Um, I highly recommend, like, I was also applying to internships for my freshman year. I wasn't getting internships, but I was applying every year, seeing what other people were submitting to internship opportunities. And this helps you learn about the job market, learn about opportunities, learn about how frequent opportunities are, the general expectations they can expect, and also um, the job fair is where I wound up getting my internship at ZeniMax Online. So I met with somebody during like COVID lockdown job fair. And at the end of the call, he was just like, yeah, we don't really have anything right now, but I like your portfolio and we might have some opportunities in the future. 3 months later, they called me. Like, I don't even know where they found my phone number. But I got a random phone call while I was working at the Gap. And they were like, hi, is this Zach? We're looking for a concept artist. Do you want to join like our internship program that we just started? And that's how that went. So definitely make those contacts, talk with people, and start applying early. And again, connections, events like this, clubs, student projects, collaborate with your fellow students, go to the game jam. I don't know if they still do that, but I know that ITGM had like the game jam at Monty when I was there, and it's a good little like weekend thing where you don't sleep, but you get some work done. You learn about collaboration with various people in your industry. Go to events outside of school. Um, Really, like I recommend trying while you're at SCAD to go to events abroad if you can. Not abroad, but in the States, like Lightbox Expo. There's also like game conventions that might be beneficial to go to. Just in my time in Europe, because right now I'm in Europe, it's easier to go to a lot of these opportunities. But just this year, I've been to three conventions and I plan to go to another one next month. Really good to meet people in person because then you are no longer just a face. You're no longer just like words on a screen. You have a face, you have a personality, and it's much more likely that people remember you and keep you for future opportunities. And I'm pretty sure that's how I got so in contact with like my internship opportunity. And beyond concept art, join unrelated clubs. I was a part of the Gamers Guild, I believe it was called. I played a lot of D&D while I was at SCAD, and I still do. Every 2 weeks, I play D&D. Here's my little party in a circle. I it's really good to have your hobbies and stay on top of like having fun and not overwhelming yourself with work. Obviously, I still draw as a part of my hobby. It's funny, like I'll do my work art, and then to have a break, I'll draw a little bit of like my D&D characters. Because I don't know, like it's just like my brain shuts off when I do my D&D art. It's a completely different style. I'm having fun. And I am still having fun in my industry. But I think it's a good way of separating that work mentality from the studio mentality. And also, I know it's not always possible. I recommend trying to limit the amount of time you work every day. Um, a thing I really liked about the school I wound up going to after SCAD, so New Edge, was that our entire program was 9 a.m. to 5. We didn't have homework. We just worked from 9 to 5 every day or 9 to 6. And you didn't work on the weekends. It was set up like a studio job. So you have your work hours and then you have your like quiet time. And I think that that's really important to try to separate your work time from your quiet time. Having 5 8-hour days is way better for your mindset than having like three all-nighters in a row, which I know that's very common at SCAD. I was there, I experienced it. Don't do it. And also take care of your wrists. I have had wrist problems in the past and you don't want them. One of my fellow classmates had carpal tunnel syndrome last year and he had to get surgery. You don't want that. Do exercises, try to stop every 45 minutes. Even if you're just like a game dev artist, you're on that mouse all day. I get the worst wrist pain when I'm on Blender, like not even using a tablet. 45 minutes, take a break, stretch your wrists, look up exercises. Don't damage your tools because you need those and you need those long term. So you've graduated. What do you do now? Where do you find jobs? So there's a lot of sites that I use. These are the ones that I mainly find postings on. And I will send this to you so you all have access to these resources. But this is generally like the type of stuff that you see on these sites. You can search by country and all of that, and you find a pretty decent amount of opportunities. Um, and where do you find studios? Um, the main sites that I use for studios are LinkedIn, ArtStation, and Game Dev Map. So on Game Dev Map, you can essentially just find most of the studios in any location that you select. And that's really, really helpful. Just literally, I go through Game Dev Map, find all the studios, make a spreadsheet, and then I just send like if they have open applications on their site. Hi, are you looking for a concept artist? Here's my portfolio. I'm available. And like at least having that, I can't say if it's fully like gonna happen, but I had a studio that I reached out to 3 months ago, just through an open application. And 3 weeks ago, they sent me a message like, "Hey, we like your portfolio. We'd love to work with you." It can take time, and just stay hopeful, and remember that you can also re-upload portfolios when you make changes and all of that. And also on ArtStation, you can look up outsourcing studios. Outsourcing studios are always looking for people, and sometimes you can get pretty similar pay depending on where it's based. So just have a look and see, like even the studios that don't have concept art listed, go on their website and send them an open application. Who knows? Who knows what they're looking for? Um, and yeah, I highly recommend that. Here are my personal LinkedIn tricks. Use brackets in your searches. Check posts as well as job opportunities. A lot of people just do posts. So you'll see like this open position. It doesn't have concept art on it, but there were no tags. It was literally like I just saw it because somebody I know liked it. And you don't even see it in the search bar because it's a photo. So you really have to check multiple times a day and try to find, like when you're in the job search period, and look through all of those opportunities and try to figure out like, okay, who's hiring today? And I check LinkedIn like 3 times a day now. Like I'm just, let's find the next opportunity. Let's figure this out. Make sure that it's set to most recent instead of most relevant. I mean, that's pretty like standard. And check your feed frequently. And also follow staffing and recruitment pages. They post a lot of opportunities that you might not see otherwise. And then apply even if there's no openings, like I said before. And don't be afraid to apply for positions that you may not fit every qualification for. A lot of opportunities are saying like 5 years of experience. If you have the skills, you have the skills. Some companies may be a little like, but for concept art specifically, they don't care if you have a degree for the most part. They don't care about your resume. It's real unless you're like senior position. They really just want to make sure you can do the work and that you're good. So that's what I recommend. Like since the beginning of summer, I have posted a lot of job applications. You can see a little snippet of my spreadsheet. I recommend making a spreadsheet. Um, and expect rejection. That's something that it's a good, like, I think that's something that applying for internships early really helped prepare me for. You're going to hear a whole lot of no's, and you're also going to hear a whole lot of nothings. Um, Mostly nothings. Most companies will never tell you if you got the job or not. Well, you obviously didn't get a job, but like they just won't say anything. Be like, you'll be just be like, okay, are they gonna say something? No, okay. And that's just kind of par for course in this industry, in most industries, honestly. But writing down what studios you apply to, when, if you have a site like LinkedIn or if you have ArtStation Premium, checking when they're looking at your profile. I think that's really beneficial to your portfolio. And also, when you update your portfolio, try not to do it too often, but if you're making major updates, reach out to studios. One of the guys I actually showed him one of the examples. I met with him recently again in when he's one of the hard surface guys. And he was telling me, yeah, in one summer, I don't know if I'll recommend this, just saying. It's but he applied to one studio 3 times in one summer. And all 3 times he got rejected like within a week, and or like even within a day. And then at the end of summer, they reached out to him and they were just like, "Hey, we saw your portfolio in ArtStation and we really like what you do." So just know that sometimes it's not even you, it's just they use weird sites to look through these applications. And you just want to make a good impression, meet somebody in person, try to make friends, I guess, in this industry, and you have the best chances of getting a job. Again, it's tough out there. Budget for time. I think that's something that was really important for me to realize when I graduated. And this is for any industry. It can often take 6 to 12 months to get a job. Um, and I think that that's something that we kind of forget. Like we after school, it's just like, oh, I graduated. I'm going to get a job in a month. Obviously, there's exceptions. There's people who do get a job in a month. But you really have to realize that the industry is tough right now, and but the whole work market is. Give yourself a timeline. Say, if obviously if you have the funds to support you for a relative amount of time, just say, okay, if by this period point of time I don't have a job, and spend that time working on your portfolio and trying to develop your skills. Say if I don't get a job in 3 months, I'll work at retail for a bit and work on and do my art on the side. That's what I was doing before I got my internship, because I didn't have a job for 7 months. I was applying and I wasn't getting anything after SCAD. And then randomly, I mean, then I got my internship through the job fair. But I was working at the Gap. I wasn't enjoying it, but I was still doing personal work on the side, and really trying to develop my skills. And I sure learned how to work with customers. I sure hope I never have to do that again. And like I said before, understand that jobs can fall through. So make sure you have a plan B, either with another job. Don't like until you signed a contract, and like don't say no to the other person that you're applying with. Really stay on top of that and try to like keep all of your opportunities until you have officially signed something. And then still every once in a while keep an eye on like LinkedIn and all that to make sure there's not new opportunities. And also continue to make connections. Engage with your local art community. I know Savannah doesn't have the biggest like outside of SCAD, but while I was there, I know Dry Campus. You didn't hear it from me, but I was going to like drink and draws, local drink and draws, which is a good opportunity to meet with people. You don't have to drink at these places, but it's good to see like people in your local community who are doing art, meeting with them, forming those connections. If you live in a big city, there's generally bigger events. But I highly recommend going to local art community events. I go to museum, like right here, living in Paris, I go to museum drawing events. I meet with people frequently. If I see somebody who is on Instagram that if we're mutuals and I see that they're in Paris, shoot them a message. Or like if you notice that somebody is in your location and your mutuals, don't be like weird about it, but just be like, hey, I really like I would love to catch up and hang out with you. I like last year I hung out with Kellen Jett, who is a concept artist who works on Spider-Verse, because one of my friends took a class with him and they were mutuals on Instagram and they invited me to go to dinner. So we had like a really nice conversation about the animation industry. And I really think like people know people. It's a very small industry, and you will get to know a lot of people if you stay within it. Um, and stay in contact with people from SCAD. Um, I am really thankful. Like one of the opportunities that I've had in indie tabletop comes from an alumni from the illustration department from when I was a student. And they've reached out to me a few times to do work on indie teaching RPG projects, focusing on like LGBT queer representation, POC representation, and it's something that I care very much about. And I will say that like during my interviews, I'm always I need you to have like a diverse and like a team that actually like cares about these subjects, because I can't not have that. Um, but that's just something that I find really beneficial. Yes, I'm almost. And then be genuine and kind, connect with people on social media. So LinkedIn, big one. Join Discord communities. There's a lot of Discord communities that are pretty big. So like Moon Colony has a Discord. Six More Vodka. You can get really good critique, you can get really good conversations and get to know people in the industry. Continue to practice, same stuff that I said before in the practice section. Do your own long-term personal projects. Don't stop working on fundamentals. absorb art, go watch new movies that come out, engage in new games that come out. Um, do a lot of go to museums if you have access to them. Really focus in on what you need to learn and do to be successful in this industry. And then obviously tutorials, long-term personal projects. That's the kind of stuff in the portfolio page slide before. The links will kind of cover what kind of things you should do for your portfolio. And then stay up to date even after you get the job. Continue to update your portfolio. When you're working in a studio, you're going to have NDAs. A lot of time you might not be able to post work for like 2 years after you do it. So make sure that you have consistent personal work that you can show to show that you are still absorbing new information, that your work is still at the standard that you can currently accomplish. Check ArtStation for current trends. Don't copy those trends, but it can be good for understanding like what software is being used now, and what tools are more common in the industry. And yes, now I have the Q&A. And once I send this, once I send this document to everyone, I also have some additional resources and slides afterwards that you guys or y'all can look at in your own leisure to because I do not have time to go over all of that as well. So yes, I have the Q&A open now.
So what we can do, guys, is you can just do the raise your hand function. I think that would work. And Zach, you also have the list too of questions.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe some of them were already covered just in the conversation. Um, so I'm just going to go through the some of the questions that were asked. So, what was your first internship? Where did you hear about it? I covered kind of like the ZeniMax online internship that I heard about through the SCAD job job event. I don't know. I'm having like a brain fart moment, but um, then so what can I start preparing for a career in concept art as a freshman? That's definitely something that I would look into the portfolio building software because I feel like that can be its whole presentation on its own. There's a lot to building a concept art portfolio, but looking at studios like I showed you, like with Volta, or outsourcing studios, I think outsourcing studios are a really good example of finding what the expectations are, and what the turnover and product is, that is being sent to studios. And it's kind of like, okay, like a lot of Diablo art showcases that pretty well. So it's ready for production. And they don't really have as much process work, which you definitely need a lot of process work for your portfolio. But it's good to see that as an industry standard. Um, how to get your portfolio noticed? That's a tough one. I think it's uh, there's some people get jobs through social media. I have a friend, like an old roommate, who got a job with doing Disney Arcana through Instagram. But I honestly think that while it is good to have a social media presence, it's not the be all end all. People with amazing social media presence, artists amazing social media presence, and very popular posts on ArtStation don't have jobs in the industry, because they do things that are very visually appealing but are not concept art. So make sure you understand what concept art is. If your work fits into the categories of concept art, you are more likely to have a job than somebody who just has good rendering. Um, yes. How should I go about seeking honest critique from art directors or peers? Um, I think like I mentioned before, finding online communities is extremely beneficial. So joining clubs like the SCAD Concept Art Club, there's a lot of alumni in that group that are open to giving feedback and critique. And on a lot of these big Discord groups that you can find, there are specific critique channels where you can get really good direct advice from industry professionals. Six More Vodkas page is has been fantastic. I got in contact with like Six More Marco, and he just gives amazing critique, and I'm just like it's very, very like to the point. They're direct. And I think that is one thing that I think should be valued quite a lot, direct feedback. Like, obviously, you don't want somebody who's mean to you, but you really want somebody who is going to be honest about your portfolio, where you stand in the industry, and who can actually give you beneficial advice on what you need to do, what you need to improve, and how to get there. Um, okay, so then there was what's a typical day at the job? Um, it's really just, I think it really depends on where you're working. I and since I've mainly worked in remote positions, there's a little bit less communication than most. But when I was working at ZeniMax Online, we would have 2 meetings a week with the general concept art team and art director. And we would have like a board where there would be the prompts that we would have. So it would say, you need to design, let me find an example. One of them was like a dog with a hat. They're like, we have this hat that was designed for another asset, and we have this specific breed of dog. Like mix them together and go have fun. So I was working on that, and then you get feedback from the art director. Depends. Some studios, it's daily updates. Some studios, it's weekly. Sometimes it's even less so. But it's you'll be talking with the art director. You get that direct feedback. Sometimes you have to restart a lot, but I think it's not the worst industry to be in. I think it's pretty like I haven't had any problems with working on like the remote. Unfortunately, I don't have as much insight for full-time in-person positions. Um, so I will open it up to the questions directly now. I don't know exactly how to allow people to ask questions.
So, since I'm the host, you can just answer like them in the order on your screen, and
Okay.
then once they're done, they can just put their hand back down. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. So we'll start with Peter.
Hi. I would like to ask about uh, how often AI is used in the industry and like how it's used, not necessarily like totally generated, but I mean, uh, how is it affecting the industry like in the pipeline? This
Mhm.
is what I'm interested in.
Yeah. So honestly, so far, at least with the people that I've been in contact with, not really, at all. But I think that is partially because most of the artists that I've spoken with are vehemently anti-AI. So that definitely affects like the statistics of that. What I can say is I'm seeing more job opportunities that are being posted that specifically ask for AI. Um, so like either an AI concept artist, or they'll mention AI in the requirements. But in terms of just general workflow, um, it's not really like a requirement, at least right now. And people are definitely just like, you can work in quite a few studios and never have to work with AI at all. So I hope that answers the question a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I did. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, Leon.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much. It was very helpful, very informative talk. But I wanted to ask how you went about curating your personal style. I know it's important to look at artists whose work you'd like to emulate, but I wanted to know if there's anything that you specifically did or challenges you ran into while you were trying to curate a style, especially as, a freelancer who needs something, distinctive to market themselves to specific contractors.
Yeah. So honestly, I it's one of those questions where I feel like I'm still in that moment of trying to discover my style. Um, I feel like it very much is just a lifelong, because I've met people have extremely stylized portfolios, and they'll say, I don't have a style. Like, I like this guy. I feel like I said that in a way but Pedro Kruger, he was my teacher for a little bit. And he has a very distinctive style, and he doesn't find that he has a specific style. And I hear like that kind of commentary from quite a lot of people. I think it's hard to know from the inside, but in terms of ways to discover your own personal style, I think it's just brush hours. So you're spending time drawing, and then gradually you discover where you start simplifying shapes, where you start enjoying the process. And I think that's something, especially in my more stylized work, I find that I have quite a distinctive style. Um, like this specific piece is some of my more stylized work, and it's very much just okay. Like when I shut off my brain, how do I make these choices? Um, and I think part of learning how to shut off your brain to start making those choices is when you start understanding anatomy, understanding style, and doing studies of people's work. Like, don't post the studies. But when you start realizing, like, there's a lot of tutorials online, or if you go on Pinterest, you'll see a lot of like Night Jeng and I'm trying to think of people with very, very distinctive styles. I'll say Pedro Kruger as well because he is a big influence of mine, especially for stylized work. Um, Seeing how they stylize, I think the order I would go in is learn the techniques. So understand anatomy really well, understand form, understand color. And then after that, the more you do it, start implementing stylized work. So other people's work, how they render. Neskane is a big one. I'm a huge fan of Neskane's work. He does work for Overwatch. Um, and I am hugely influenced by the work that he produces for his stylized work, his stylized stuff. And there's really something to this deep understanding of anatomy once you translate it to the forms that speak to you as an artist. I hope that that was a bit explained it a little bit, but yeah.
That helps. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And Emily?
Hi. Can you
Hey,
hear me?
yes.
I just want to say thank you so much for spending time explaining everything today.
Yeah, no problem.
I was just wondering when it comes to like using and utilizing industry standard technology such as Photoshop, I find that there's a lot of different ways to do different things.
Mhm.
How would you suggest like making sure that you're utilizing these programs the way that the company you're looking for is going to use as well? Like um, making sure you're doing things. I know there's like no right way with art, but like making sure you're doing things the right way, for lack of a better
Yeah,
term.
so honestly, if one thing that I realized, so when I was doing my program at New Edge, when teachers would come in, they all use the same computer. So we would have them for 2 weeks, and they would use the same computer, and almost every single one had a completely different layout on Photoshop. Different, even like the color, pickers were completely different. Um, some people used, I wish I remember the term, like the hue slides. Other people use like the triangle. Um, I think that the best thing that you can do is go through a lot of the individual tools. to just understand how they work. When I was at SCAD, I was dating a photographer for a bit. So I learned a lot about like the Photoshop from a photography point of view, which helped my workflow a lot. So I learned about masking. I learned about the camera raw filter, which is anybody, if you use Photoshop, the camera raw filter is probably one of the best filters you could use. Um, the for the blur tools, not using the blur gallery instead of the standard blur filters have just significantly better blurs. Um, Actually using, but the big ones that changed my workflow are effectively using masks and effectively using clipping, like clipping masks and layer masks. I think as long as you understand how those work and get a little bit of understanding of some of the filters and using keybinds, I think that's really like most of it. And then every single person is going to have a very different uh like workflow on each specific software. And some studios will have their own workflow. So they'll have their own, not really workflow, but they'll have specific like layer separation. So they'll say like the clothing goes on this layer, the skin goes on this layer, and they have like specific colors and specific like layouts like that. But I think that's really the only thing you would have to worry about, as long as you are turning in the work on time, doing it to like the standard they're expecting, and you're sending it as a relatively organized PSD, you're good.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations other than finding a photographer and dating them for learning Photoshop?
Um,
While
hmm.
at SCAD?
uh, I'm trying to think because I feel like I Photoshop was one of those things that I just learned through like osmosis. I um I think that I'll post a link to some of the tutorials that I use to the end of this presentation after, just to give a little bit of that. But I think that reach probably going on Gumroad and looking at how other artists produce work and asking each other. I think that's one thing that I didn't use enough while I was at SCAD was just the people that were around me just in classes. Asking like, hey, how do you use Photoshop? What tools do you use for your workflow? I know a lot of people at SCAD, especially in the SQL department, they use Clip Studio now. So it's a bit harder to get Photoshop knowledge, but I think that just going out and asking, like I know for me, like I have in here, like you can absolutely feel free to reach out to me and I can show specific tools on Photoshop. I'm also open to doing helping with portfolio reviews and things like that. Obviously, I have a limited amount of time, but I do want to help people succeed in this industry. If you need direct assistance, anyone who's listening right now, definitely feel free to reach out to me and I can help in any way I can.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm in the process of right now going from um what's it called? Procreate to Photoshop. So,
Oh yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. No, I get it though. Like definitely reach out to me if you need any advice and I can try to help you out with that.
thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And Cassian.
Hi. So I was wondering what level of finish your art directors are asking for. I know that everyone wants to have like a super polished, finished portfolio to send around, but also there is simply not enough time. And the chair of illustration has especially been hardening on like having concept art photo portfolios that are just like unfinished, sketchy. Where is the balance, do you think? When do you call a piece
Um,
done?
Let me actually going to okay, I'm hoping you can still see my screen right now. Like, oh my goodness. Let me move the UI a little bit. Let's see. Nope. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can see it, Zach. You're good.
Okay, great. This was the example that I had on my document. Um, Wait, this is more, it's my character illustration. Wait, I want to give you a good example of this. I collect these. Uh, Okay, this I would consider to be a pretty good single piece for portfolio. Um, so like you have that final render of a character, and this is a more like uh I mean for the style of art that I do, this is a less finished one. And then I mean this is like the full finish like render. And then they have these call outs that are pretty like simple, like really just like two brushes and like two colors, one brush, and like quick scribbles. Um, and when you look at their process work, I mean, they have more render general process work. This would be kind of like the middle stage. So having like a base stage of let me see if I have no, that's 3D. I recently saved one that was really good. But okay, it really depends on the industry. So this is film concept art stuff. So this is all like drawing on top of 3D. Um, so the general like how rendered it should be really depends on what you're doing it for. Like this, you can see like lines, you can see like scratchiness and all of that, but looks like the end product. Like I mean, you can see like the hand isn't completely done. Like there's like a lot of the shapes are blending together. But that's kind of just like for film, this is the kind of like level you would be expecting. Um, but realism isn't only the final render. Realism is also proportion. It's because I recently this one. Like this is concept art for the Loki show. Um, it's not the most realistic thing in the world, but it is done in a way where these shapes can easily be translated to live action and a realistic project. But I think this would probably be like the minimum level for film concept art. Um, like really having that like very realistic proportions, even if your final render isn't the most realistic thing in the world. When it comes to games, let me see if I have a good example of that. Goodness, I have so many things in my likes. I think this is a game. So this is a game concept art, and it's a little more like this is a realistic character, but it is more like it's not full photorealism. It's getting to the point where you understand the shapes enough that you can simplify them. Um, Actually, I have a close friend who he's been very successful since his graduation. So I think he might be a very good example. Okay. So this is one of my friends from school. He is crazy fast. Like this dude does work at a very fast level. But this level of work, like a lot of the shapes are blending into each other. Like you can't see individual characters in the crowd. Like his early concept art is this level of sketching, but this is the early stage. This is not going to be your final. Um, but looking through it, it's not fully polished work. It's it's still saying what it needs to. So, but the thing is, he's also mainly getting hired for Blue Sky. So he's getting hired for that really early stage, coming up the general idea of what the game will be, like stage of concept art. But I mean, you can definitely have a portfolio of just work like this, where it's far more like simplified, but you're still getting that general understanding of shape. And I mean, for him, this project, these 2 slides, it was 10 weeks of work for all of it. So it's definitely like the kind of like he does these like really cool stuff. But it's definitely possible to get a job with a little bit more of like a simple style or a less rendered finish. But it really depends on the studio. Not really the case for film, and it's yeah, I hope that helped a bit. I can probably give more examples of like specific finishes, but um it's I wouldn't say that that's just sketches. It's basically like you need a lot of sketches and then you need a readable finish. And I think that's the main thing. One thing I read was having like 70% or around 70% process work and 30% nice image versus an illustration portfolio where it would be 70% nice image and 30% uh, process work.
Got it.
But
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
yeah, no problem.
If there's no more questions, I can stop the recording here. Any final questions, guys? All good? Okay.